Oh my gosh. Hey guys, how's it going? Katie Rubin here. Good to not see you. Good to snot see you. I wish I could see you. I'm so glad you're geeking out waiting for the countdown, Rhonda, except that like I have Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde. So I can't type in the comments. There's no comment bar. It like doesn't exist when it usually always does. It didn't exist last week either. I'm begging Leslie on the other end here to research like how that works. It's so weird. Anyway, and I have no idea how many of you are here or not here. So we'll just dive in. Hi, Sonia. Good to see you. So if you're here and you can say hi in the chat, there's usually a little countdown of how many people are here, but Mercury retrograde is happening. So I guess there's not a countdown of how many people are here. So just say hi in the chat if you're here hearing these words right now. Oh my gosh, it's Katie Church. We're doing it. It's funny because I have so many things I'm doing that we like work. Hi, Ben, he's here. And so is Cindy. Oh my God, there's some human beings. Margaret McCara motherfucking Han. What's up, girl? How you doing? Across the globe showing up. Jacqueline Holbrook. Oh my gosh. Jacqueline says, thank you for Sunday's retrograde healing. Thank you guys for Sunday's retrograde healing. Holy Christ on the cross. That shit blew my fucking shit. And that shit blew my mind. I mean, gosh, I can say a lot of things about it. And we could use that as a segue into all kinds of other things. Hi, Jeff. Glad you're here. Welcome back. I'm so glad it was incredible for you, Ben. That's rad. Truly, I'm really glad that that these things are full and effective. I have lived with these energies for so long in my own little world, and they've been changing my life for so long. And, I've been working with people quite some time now, but it's still always kind of curious to discover how it's landing for people, what it does for you guys. I mean, it's part of what I love about teaching classes and transmitting light in the classes is that you guys tell me what it does to you, and then I get to experience the sort of beauty of that. I was just talking with Ben. We were having a chat just a few minutes ago, and we were talking about the idea that, I'm really not in charge of what the light does. It's just on my mind because we were talking about it. And now that we're talking about Sunday's retrograde healing, the light has one MO. And its MO is to activate each of us, awaken each of us, and deepen us into connection with who we are in the spirit realm, in the realm of consciousness. So there's who you are in your ego sense of self, right? And then there's who you are in the bigger, higher self sense of self. And the light, when it's moving through us, is clearing everything that stands in the way of us being intimately connected with that higher vibrational self, right? That's the idea of all this divine light transmission work. So we were just talking about this earlier too. The idea that a spiritual teacher would say to you, like, this is what will occur for you, or this is what you can expect, or here's where this path will take you. Personally, I happen to think there's a lot of arrogance in statements like that because I don't fucking know what God and the universe and consciousness has in store for you. Now, that being said, there are certain fundamental kind of spiritual truths you could say, although even that framing of it lands a little too firmly in like a rigid something kind of space when I say that way, but language is limited, so we do our best with it. There are certain things that, certain guideposts, certain signposts along the way, certain tendencies we can expect, certain things that tend to occur on the spiritual path, but we can't say how the light is going to activate you. And, the evidence for that is if you look at everybody's individual human design chart, you see the light is meant to activate each of us in very unique ways because we're each quite unique from one another. And look at a few human design charts in a row and you'll see that. So all of this has to do with the topic I wanted to get into today, actually, in a fun way, which is to say, I wanted to, let's see, what did I actually call today? Leslie, if you have a second to throw the title of today in the chat, that'd be great. But basically it was like getting your needs met, having feelings, and how that's related to spiritual ascension work, right? And I sent it to her, so let me see what I wrote. Let me look at my own words because the words as they come through are relevant. Are you able to send that to me, Leslie? Let's see. Get it. Thank you so much. Getting needs met, having feelings, telling the truth. Let's get into it. Getting needs met, emotional human needs, having feelings, and telling the truth. A, how are they connected to one another? And B, how is all of that connected to divine light energy transmission, softening the tight holding space of the double helix DNA strand, as Ben and I were chatting about, activating the double helix DNA strand to be unified with the great big double helix DNA strand of consciousness itself. How is all of this connected? The simplest way that I can frame this, I was thinking about this before we hopped on today, is if you think about an example of something in your life where let's say there's a relationship, you're in a intimate relationship with someone, let's say a romantic partner, and something they're doing is making you feel bad consistently over time. Now, I'm not talking about like big trauma levels of, we're not talking about like they're cheating on you or they're hitting you with a brick in the face. We're talking about, you know, the way they communicate something makes you feel dismissed, or the way they don't respond when you text them makes you feel devalued or ignored or like you don't matter. Okay. And there's a way that, particularly for spiritual people, so often we walk through this life thinking, I shouldn't be upset about this. If I were spiritually evolved, I wouldn't be having reactions to this. Now, this is where it gets into the whole healing path and the activation path and the awakening path is a complex thing. It's not simple. It's complex because humans are complex and relational dynamics are like take the complexity of you and then put it in relationship to the complexity of another. And now you got a lot of shit going on. Again, look at anybody's human design chart and you'll see all the gates and channels that can possibly be activated in one individual. Now you're trying to interact with another person's all those gates and channels. Yeah, there's a lot happening. It's a lot to navigate. So when you are with someone and they do a thing that makes you feel a way and you're spiritual, so you tell yourself like, I should not react. Let me not react. There's a partial truth in that, and there's a partial not truth in that illusion, delusion, or lie, or limitation, you could say, which is to say, if I respond to you from my reaction in the moment, the way I feel like responding, because from the voice of the reaction, you are more than likely going to throw up your defenses in response to me. So, am I free to do that? Of course. We live in a universe where you could choose to react all day, every day if you want. I can go like, well, fuck you. What does that mean? And that's how I might feel in a moment. And I could choose to react that way. Or I can choose to have the reaction internally and really have the reaction, have it, feel it, allow it to arise within the body mind, and then stay there with it. And whilst I'm having it and staying there with it, I can choose to behave externally in a way that is considerate of you. I could choose to behave externally in a way that gives me a moment to get back to the higher self version of how I would really like to communicate around the issue at hand. So you see, we're holding both things at the same time when we're in an ideal world. We're holding both. I'm having my reaction and I'm communicating with you in a way that is considerate of your heart, in a way that is kind, in a way that is clear and direct. Now, so notice when I do that, I'm not pushing the feelings away, AKA squashing the reaction, AKA not feeling how I actually feel. There is a part of me having a reaction. That part of me needs something. It needs something. Now, depending on what part it is, and what it's reacting to and how it's reacting, all of those things are going to help you figure out in the long run what that part needs. Sometimes the part needs time connected to spirit. The part is just, I don't know, all covered in darkness and demonic energies and entity possession and trauma from the past. So there's no way for that part to get its needs met in this relational dynamic with this human being in front of it. So you might need to say like, "Hey, I'm really upset right now. I'm triggered and I need to go away and do some work with spirit on this, and I'll come back to you when I can communicate more effectively and efficiently with you." So you might go to spirit in that case, do your spiritual practice and see what the light does to the feeling or the part of you that's having the reaction. And then once the light allows you or facilitates you to process that reaction through, bring you back to wholeness, bring you back to peace and centeredness, then you might find that you have the ability to be a bit more rational and centered and measured in your communication of what needs to get met that wasn't getting met in the reactive moment. But it's very hard to calmly and quietly ask for your needs to get met when you're in the middle of a reaction. Okay. But that doesn't mean the reaction part of you should not be tended to. It doesn't mean the reaction part of you should be judged as bad and wrong and as not worthy of anybody's time, love, or attention. In fact, the fact that we judge our reactions to people and we judge them as being too much, too immature, traumatized, reactive, all those words that when we hold them with the energy of judgment, we are literally doing to ourselves the exact same thing that our parents did, or our cousins, or our uncles, or your abuser, or your teachers, or whoever it was for you when you were a kid, when you first learned how to exile certain parts of yourself, AKA stop getting your needs met. Feelings and reactions in the body are your body and your soul and your heart and your spirit and your higher self's way of letting you know there is a need not getting met here. So your job as the higher self you is to figure out, by spending time with that part in a way that your parents never could, or in a way that your music teacher never could, whoever it was that exiled you or judged you when you were young. It's your job as the higher self you, the adult you, to spend time with that reactive part. When you spend time with a reactive part, the part can express itself and then stop reacting. But if you tell a reactive part, like, calm down, be spiritual, we're going to say the right thing here, now you have an angrier part inside of yourself and you've behaved well. And the outer world of people is going to go like, what a nice behaving woman. What a wonderful gentleman. What a kind non-binary person. What a wonderful, and they're going to love you and you're going to be glad because they're giving you the feedback you want. And maybe you keep your job and you keep your relationships and whatever. But you go home angry and you don't know why. And it's because you're continuing to repress a part of yourself, an emotional, irrational, hear me now, you're continuing to repress an emotional, reactive, reactional, what word did I say? An emotional, relational, reactive part of yourself who already, you're continuing to squash the voice and the feelings of that part, who's already been squashed this whole time. So coming back to the question at hand, what does this have to do with getting needs met, having feelings, telling the truth? How does this all connect to spirit? So let's say there you are. We take you back to this example. You're in your relational dynamic and you have this reaction to your romantic partner. And you say to yourself, as a spiritually evolved person, I shouldn't be reacting to this. Translation, you tell a young, injured part of you to shut the fuck up. Suck it up. Grow up. Be spiritual. And the young reactive part of you is like, but I'm still mad. And it starts to like stomp its feet inside of you. If instead what you were to do would be to drop into that feeling that reactive part is having and sit there, just stop everything and sit there feeling it, letting it cry, letting it rage, letting it do whatever it needs to do, AKA having feelings. By the time the feelings were to happen and pass through your body, you would then know a little bit more about what the needs are, the present moment needs are of that part. What does it need? Does it need to be hugged? Does it need to be heard? Does it need to be loved? Does it just need to express? You'll never know if you don't stop and feel the feelings it's having, AKA have your reaction, have it in your body. Don't act it out at the people in front of you, but have it inside of you. Make space to feel it and experience it and allow it to come up. Then you get to find out, and I'm going to give some concrete examples here to make this make sense. And we're going to talk about the direct connection between conscious awareness or spirituality and this. Then you have the opportunity to get clear on what needs it has. And then you can get busy parenting that part with the next stage of parenting. Think of it this way. When a child is throwing a tantrum, if you say to a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old child, like, stop it, grow up, stop yelling, be spiritual. The child has no idea what the fuck you're talking about. First of all, it's like, what? And then it's mad at you because you're yelling at it, or it's sad and hurt and afraid of you because you're yelling at it while it's already freaking out. But if instead you say to a child like, oh, what's the matter, honey? What happened? Tell me. Oh, she stole your ball? Oh, I'm so sorry. You give them a hug and you tell them that's so hard, and you meet them where they are and you empathize with the pain that child is going through. And then you say, once you empathize with the child will usually calm down. Yeah, here's my ball and I'm mad about it. I know, I would be mad too. That sounds so hard. Yeah. And then they start to sort of get distracted. They'll usually go like, anyway, and then they go running away. And it's because all they freaking needed was somebody to mirror to them that it's okay how they're feeling. Not that it's okay how they're behaving externally about their feelings, but simply just that it's okay what they're feeling, that the feeling is okay. Another way that could look is you might hug the kid and empathize with the kid, and then the kid might still be upset and stay cranky, and maybe they haven't eaten enough and their blood sugar's low. And then after you can kind of feel by attuning into the vibrational frequency of the kid, when you can feel that they feel a little bit better, okay, and that they feel nourished, they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel held by you, they feel loved and acknowledged by you, then you might say to them, look, shiny object. Oh, look, there's Jenny. She's got popsicles. Oh, look, maybe you want to go throw the ball with your friend John. You can distract a kid away from the pain because they've actually gotten the need met, which was to cry and be held while they cried, or be angry and be held while they cry. Once that need is met, suddenly they can just be distracted and run away. Now, let's bring this back to, now we're talking, that was an external child. Now imagine that tantrum throwing child is inside of you and is reacting to your husband or your wife or your partner, okay? That's what's happening when you're reacting to people, is there's a young little 2-year-old throwing a tantrum in there, and you cannot shame a 2-year-old into behaving better. If you want the 2-year-old to be healthy, if you want the 2-year-old to be whole, you have to love a 2-year-old who's throwing a tantrum. So how do we get good at loving the parts of ourselves that are reactive when all of our training and even a lot of our spiritual consciousness training tells us that part is bad and wrong? How the fuck are you supposed to love a part of yourself that nobody taught you how to fucking love? How? All you know is mom said you don't get to have those feelings. So now you believe you have an introjected mom now and you don't get to have those feelings. So what's a bitch to do? What is a bitch to do? The answer is a bitch is to find a way to start connecting to these parts that are having reactivity in a kind and loving way. One of the sort of first steps that can be very helpful is simply naming the feeling. If you could slow down enough to say, I feel angry that my partner is not texting me back. I feel abandoned. I feel hurt. Uh-oh, here comes the healer. Here comes the spiritual healer. She's back, everybody. There she is. Squeezle the dog, returning from the wild, where she went to urinate with a person who loves her. Thank you. Thank you. We needed you. We were just talking about holding the parts of ourselves that are vulnerable, just like your furry dog body. Okay. So a first step is getting practiced at just naming the feeling. If I could just say, I'm fucking mad at you for doing this, then that's the beginning of my having a relationship with this part of self that is having reactivity. If I stay with the part and I say to the part, you're angry, how else do you feel? Well, I feel sad. I feel rejected that my partner doesn't respond to me. And I say, as the higher self or the adult self part of myself to the younger part of me, would you be willing to ask him to text you back instead of not texting you back? And the young part might say something like, I'm afraid he's going to be mad if I ask him. Well, then I could stay with that part of myself from my adult self to the younger self and say, like, I know it's scary. He might say he can't, but we're never going to find out if he can actually meet our need there unless we ask. What if we ask really nicely and really kindly, but we're very clear about what we need? And let's see how he does. And if he responds badly, I'll be here for you. I will not abandon you because you had a need. This is adult Katie talking to little Katie. So then maybe I get the courage up and the bravery up to say to my partner, hey, I know you don't mean this, but when you don't respond to my texts, it ends up making me feel like I don't matter to you. I feel really dismissed. I don't think that's your intention, but that's how I feel. Is there any way you would be willing to just write a single one-line response to my text and say, hey, babe, busy at work. We'll get back to you later. Or, hey, babe, can't respond right now. Focusing on other stuff. More soon. Or, totally hear you. Love you. Gotta run. More soon. Any words that you could say to me that would help me know you'll be back. You have to go now, but you'll be back. Would you be willing to do that? You say in the form of a question to your partner who is triggering you, rather than in the form of a demand. You need to do this and you should do that. And why aren't you doing this? And fuck you anyway. Now we're going to send those barriers right up. We're going to send those defenses right up. But when we come at someone with when you do this behavior, it makes me feel like this. I'm sure that's not your intention. Would you be willing to do this other specific behavior that I've already figured out ahead of time that I need? That gives a person an opportunity to tell you their truth. That's the truth-telling part of all this. And I promise this is all coming back to, what does this have to do with consciousness and spirituality? So now that I've told the truth, I've had my feelings. I've found out what my needs are. I need to hear him say a sentence so I don't feel dismissed. I've honored the fact that this 2-year-old in me needs these words from my partner. And I've approached my partner in a kind and compassionate, non-attacking, non-judging way, asking for my needs to get met. Now that I've done all of that, I am in a position to potentially, possibly, maybe, actually get that need met. When we come at things that way, and let's say our partner is able to say, oh my gosh, sure, no problem. I've had this one. This is a particular one from my actual life that I've had to do. Whenever I start dating someone new, I find that there's an adjustment period of like, hey, this is how texting works for me. How does it work for you? Let's get clear on each other's needs so that we're doing a good job of this. And so I've been through this one a few times. 9 times out of 10, my experience, I'd even say 9.5 times out of 10. My experience with this one is they go, oh God, sure. Yeah. And then they just do it. They're just like, hey, gotta go, talk to you soon. And then all of a sudden everything's fine. But that young part of me that was really like meanly raised, meanly parented by parents who just didn't know any better about how to parent, frankly, because they were cruelly and meanly and abusively parented by their parents. So they have no frame of reference, these poor parents, for how to talk to a child in a way that would make them feel nurtured and cared for. They didn't know how. So now it's my job to learn how. And this is, of course, a place where a lot of resentment and pain can come up for people, where you have the feeling of, Why should I have to learn how to parent myself because these assholes couldn't fucking do their jobs? Why'd you become a fucking parent in the first place if you didn't know how to parent? And then, of course, you get to listen to the anger and the rage and the hurt of that part and process that part until that part feels so held and seen and nurtured and met by your attention. Just by feeling it, you're putting attention on the young part. When you put attention on a part, the part feels seen and heard and met, and then integrates up and grows into your current day age, and you feel whole. Then you're coming to your relationships more whole. And then, as a whole person, you could start to ask for your needs to get met. You could start to tell the truth. Now, here's where spirit comes into play. All of that, of course, it involves spirit, which we could talk about, but here's where spirit comes into play at this point. Once I've made the request, something to the other person, something inside of me starts to happen. I'm using myself as an example here so you can extrapolate out and relate or not relate as the case may be. Something inside me starts to happen, which is that I start to feel a kind of sigh of relief, like I spoke up for myself. I asked for my needs to get met. Now, because of my particular trauma, I might also have the feeling of guilt or fear. Uh-oh, is mom going to be mad? The projected mom from my introjected mom is getting projected onto my partner. Are they going to be mad? That's a feeling I go through a fair amount when I ask for needs to be met. And I stay with that part and talk to it and say, like, honey, it's okay if they get mad because you and I know at this point in our lives, we have to ask for these needs to get met in order to feel safe. Because if we don't feel safe, we can't do relationship with this person. So we have to get this need met because you matter, I say to this part of myself, all the while staying in communion and connection with that part of myself, which makes me feel safe, protected, and whole. And that's just me and me right now. We're just dealing with each other in one little system right here. So I'm starting to feel better and esteemable just by owning the need and asking for it to get met in a way that is kind and non-attacking of the other person. Now the other person writes back and says, of course, babe, no problem. And they start to change the behavior immediately. Everything in my body can then relax and open. And my experience of it in the moment is a deep breath. Okay, this pressure is gone. There's an opening now in my heart and in my belly for me to receive the love that my partner might be able to, is now said he's going to be able to give to me because I asked for it. When we get a need met, we are getting love into a part of ourselves that needs love. And we are so habituated in this culture to judge all the parts of self that need love and to think we should be tough enough and strong enough and fucking bulldozery enough to not need love in these vulnerable places. And that, my friends, is fucking lie. That is the ego. That is the mind. That is the darkness. That is the culture. That is not spirit talking. Spirit would never say to a child, introjected and internal or actual and external, no, you don't deserve to get those needs met. Fucking buck up, you whiny little bitch. Spirit would never talk to a child that way. So why do we? Simply because of programming and training, habit, cultural stigma. Now, here's how spirit is connected. When I feel relieved and I take that breath and I can breathe again. You ever hear yourself say that phrase? Oh my God, I feel this weight is lifted off my shoulders and I can breathe again. I told the truth. I asked for my needs to get met and he said it was okay and he hugged me after. I can breathe again. When we can breathe again, that's an indication that spirit that we communicate with, receive energy from through the breath is now connected all the way down and in. When you have that feeling of anxiety where you're like, oh God, how's it going to go? What's he going to say? Can I get this need met? Is it okay for me to have needs? Am I allowed to feel this feeling? I don't want to have this feeling. How's it going to go if I say this thing? There's no breathing past here. You're like up in here nervous about it. And maybe if you're real good at consciously dropping your breath, you might be able to be connected to your low belly, but there's still, because of anxiety, a little separation between you and you, or I should say between you and spirit. But when you get the need met, because it turns out that the person is kind enough to meet the need, the belly opens and the spirit, through the breath, boom, drops into that low belly, drops into the heart, drops into the brainstem, enters the entire midline channel, and you feel at peace and whole. That is what spirit does. When I open the Akashic records and bring the light of God through my body, that's what happens in the Akashic records. The big, profound spiritual light transmission work we do through the conscious awareness of the portal of the star being, blah, diddy, fuckity, blah, is just love and light dropping into my midline and animating and activating me in a way that is peaceful and centered, and where I am no longer separated from any parts of me. That is what spiritual practice brings. I don't care what your spiritual practice is. If you're doing it for real, committedly, and with discipline over time, you're going to find that that's what it brings: a sense of wholeness, a sense of peace, a sense of calm, a sense of connectedness to the entirety of self. And it's going to slowly over time dissipate and release all your stuck energies that keep you disconnected from yourself. So when you admit how you feel and ask and meet the needs of the part of you that feels what it feels, and then ask the humans in your life to help meet the external needs that that part has, you take a deep breath, spirit is back. Spirit is with you again through the breath. You'll notice whenever we do divine light transmission together in here or in private sessions or wherever you see me in particular working, and you'll notice this with, I think, all legitimate spiritual people, practitioners, that there is a ton of breathing you'll hear me doing when I'm transmitting light. It's because as we get into the records and get into that expansive state, that higher frequency state, I get to drop into my low belly self in a way that my busy life has me maybe pulled out of to a certain degree, right? So I drop down and in, as I'm holding space for you, the light comes in. Oh my gosh. Then I drop down even more. Then my heart opens. Then the light transmits through the heart. Then I'm even more. Then we're transmitting light for you. And that's so much light coming through that it gives you something. And then the something it gives you comes back and touches my heart. And that's another, and there's so much spirit coming through the breath into the body mind. So when we hold our truth back, when we don't acknowledge our needs, when we are not allowed to feel because we're in judgment of the part of self that is having a feeling, we literally cannot feel spirit. We feel disconnected. We feel anxious, depressed, angry, resistant. And that is when you feel disconnected from spirit. Which brings us back to the beginning of this conversation where, if you recall, I said something like, on the spiritual path, we learn that all of these reactive ways of being are bad and wrong. So we think the spiritual thing to do is to push those ways of being down and aside and just behave well, act spiritual over here. And we talked about how the ideal is to feel those things, integrate them up, and behave well in the meantime. Well, when you get the needs met, right? You have the breath. The breath comes back because you've met the needs, and you can breathe again. Wait, I just totally lost my train of thought. This has happened like 4 times today, where I'm saying a sentence and then it's like my mind becomes just like imagine a white room. Just a fully white room. That's what's happening to my mind. I do have a fully open head in the human design structure. There's no gates and channels in any way, in any part of my head. So I think sometimes I'm just like, I'm functioning correctly as myself, and I thought that thought mattered, but there's nothing in there, so I can't cling on to it. What the fuck was I talking about? You guys can help me if you want. Write it in the chat. What was I saying that I was about to say? And if nobody knows, that's okay. We can move on. And I'll just wrap up by saying this. Let's see. Did somebody write something? No. Okay. Oh, I was so excited about that idea too, and it went bye-bye. Okay. So the whole point was getting needs met, telling the truth. And let's see. Somebody wrote something. The difference between suppressing and mastering reactivity. Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you, Ben. So, okay. So mastering it is having it, meeting the needs, communicating well, getting the needs met, having spirit, and feeling whole. So being whole emotionally is intimately connected with having spirit alive and connected in your body. Let me give another example. Let's say I do a divine light transmission and I'm sitting literally in the seat of the brightest light frequency of God that there is, right? And I'm dissolved and I have no sense of self and I feel like I'm floating in the ocean of oneness, which I've done many times, okay? And then I come out of that state and I close the records and everybody says goodnight and you guys go home. And then here I am. And then my boyfriend comes in and he does an annoying thing. And then I feel like I'm not allowed to tell him how I feel about it. Now I start to hold my breath again. And guess what? Doesn't matter at all. All of that unity and oneness that we just fucking visited in the realms of light. Who gives a fuck if you could dissolve into the realms of unity and oneness and know the bliss of unification with all that is and the vehicles of love and be them yourself? If in 5 seconds when someone comes into a room with you, you lose it all by not honoring the truth of your own needs. The emotional body is the midway point between the spirit and the physical body. Let me say it again. The emotional body and the felt sense, the visceral felt sense, is the midway point between spirit and the 3D. So if you think about it, spirit is very light and high vibrational. Emotions are a little more dense, and the 3D body is very, very dense. So how do you get all this divine light down into this very dense thing to transmute the body itself to become a vehicle of light? Well, you've got to go through the feelings. If you can't skip them. It goes light, a little bit denser, super dense. You don't get to go light over here to dense. You're going to have to travel through the feelings because they are literally the midway point between spirit and body. So there's actually no getting around doing your emotional work if you're on a spiritual or conscious awakening path because simply of the nature of the frequencies of light. Now, here's something that people do a lot, on the spiritual path, is they'll bring the light, feel super blissed out in their practice, maybe their spiritual practice or in class or in a healing or whatever. And then their body, maybe they start to have like, wow, I'm not having those symptoms I was having, or wow, I can't eat dairy anymore, but it feels better that I'm not eating dairy. I'm just making that up. Some people like start to eat dairy. Like, we don't know how it's going to go. Why? Because there's no one right thing that comes of having a spiritual connection. There's no one right outcome. Some people might need more fucking dairy. Some people might need to stay the fuck away from dairy. Some people might need only a specific kind of dairy. You get the point. So, you start bringing a ton of light in, your physical body starts to change, miracles start to happen in your life, synchronicities start to show up, maybe money starts to flow, like all kinds of different indications that your spiritual work is working for you, but you're still an angry, reactive piece of shit at work. Okay, you're not wrong and bad. You just have emotional work to do now. Your life will show you if where your work is on the physical or the emotional or both. It's going to show you where your work is by your reactions. And this brings me back to the thing I forgot, which is to say, when we get on the spiritual path and we learn, let's take a specific example. Acting out angrily at people isn't spiritual. You should be kind and gentle and generous in your communication. Okay, that's correct. It's correct that you want to express your needs and get your needs met in the most generous, compassionate way possible. That is the highest possible outcome we could head towards. It's true. But that doesn't mean in the meantime you should squash a part of you in order for that to occur. It doesn't, okay? What it means is communicate well with kindness and compassion and clarity and truth. And then either in the moment or before that moment or later when you have time, hang out with the deep part of you, the young, vulnerable part that really wanted to behave shittily in that conversation. So there's two layers here. There's the layer of how we say the words we need to say when we're getting a need met or expressing a feeling. There's how you say it, which is a mastery of its own. Learning nonviolent communication, I can't recommend it highly enough. When you do X, I feel blank. Would you be willing to do this very specific behavior that is very clear that I'm stating now as a question? That's the gist of nonviolent communication right there. So there's that layer of it. You're being kind. You're not being reactive. You're not attacking. You're not shaming. You're not judging. But this part over here who's like, fuck you, motherfucker, you piece of shit fuckwad. This guy needs attention. Because otherwise, you can be real good at nonviolent communication and become a fucking raging maniac inside. And this is back to, again, when we've talked here a lot of times about when spiritual teachers go crazy, like Wild Wild Country guy, Osho, every single spiritual teacher ever, all the people who fucking, lead cults and all the people who lead religions and then lose their fucking mind and fuck all their students. Why do you think all the spiritual, religious, high vibe men, teacher people, sorry, men, but it does tend to be men, but women do it too. And non-binary folks, I'm sure. But it's happened a lot with men. Why do you think they fuck all their acolytes? Because this guy, this guy? This is our communicating well, saying spiritual words, being kind in how I express, which is important and necessary so you don't hurt people. But this fucker over here has gotten no attention. He has not gotten to process himself. He has not gotten to be fucking angry because we believe spiritually that anger is wrong. So we just exile him and exile him and exile him. When you push an energy down long enough, it's going to find a way out. That's how energy works. Everything you repress or suppress within yourself finds a fucking exit somewhere, whether that's through the pizza you're eating late at night, the students in your classes you're fucking inappropriately, the Rolls Royces you're suddenly buying 15 of. Osho got really into buying Rolls Royces. Whatever way this part who has not been heard because he's been spiritualized away clings to express itself, he's going to find a way. So the therapeutic perspective, it's 616. The sixes are so present. Okay, we're going to talk about the sixes in a second because it came up yesterday and it's coming up again. We'll talk about it in a second. This fucker is going to find a way to get its needs met. It is going to find a way to express its anger, to be irritated, to be cranky. So why not, since it's going to find a back door to expressing itself, and please test this, you guys. I'm saying a thing as if it's true. I would like you to test it, watch it in your own life. See if this is true for you, that when you tell your angry lower self parts to not have a voice, they get madder and they find a way to express anyway. And it's usually through some addictive behavior or acting out with the people closest in your life, attacking them. I'm impatient with the dog, whatever it might be. Okay. Test it in your life. Watch, see if this is true for you. Why not instead allow this to have a voice with you, the grown-up adult you? Why not take 5 fucking minutes and parent the angry part of yourself? What happens when you start to take the time and create the space to do this? Let me move my bagel out of the frame because I just got OCD about the images in the frame. No real reason. I just needed visual balance. There you have it. When you start to take the time to sit with these parts and let them have expression, however you choose to do that, whether it's through divine light healing or journaling or therapy or all of that, or tapping is really good for it. EFT, EMDR is really good for it. There's lots of ways to do trauma healing. Coke Zero sponsorship. Hey, Coke Zero, would you like to sponsor me? I drink you all the time. I'm telling all the people that you exist for free right now. Why don't you throw some cash over here? Hmm? When you start to sit with those parts, there's a way that there's a kind of wholeness of self that comes into being. You know, I make a lot of jokes. I do, stand up comedy about this kind of shit. And I learned, how do I say, like kind of retroactively, I discovered that I was doing stand up. I was doing all this spiritual shit and I was doing stand up at the same time when I, was deepening into the path a lot of years ago. I realized my anger needed somewhere to go and I wasn't willing to act out addictively against my own body. So I was like, I'm going to put all this rage on stage. I'm going to be funny with my rage so that it has somewhere to fucking go. Then after a bunch of years of doing that, I realized, I don't like having to save my rage up until I have a show. Like I need to be able to be with my rage when it's happening now so that I'm not just like kind of repressing it, but like letting it have this little tributary outlet when I do stand up, which by the way, when I do stand up, it all comes out still for sure. But I've also gotten so much better at just having the feelings now. I make so much space. And I was going to give you guys an example, and let's do that now. I had a thing happen today. I'm trying to remember what started it. I gave a little presentation this morning. I have a side business. I have so many businesses. I'm so proud of all my businesses. Part of why I'm proud of it, and this is totally related to the topic at hand, is that my spirit likes to do lots of different stuff. I'm never satisfied in this life when I'm just an actor, when I'm just a healer, when I'm just a this or a that. It's just never worked for me. My spirit wants to experience lots of things. It wants to do different things. Sometimes it needs to move a lot. Sometimes it needs to lay down. Because I honor my emotional needs, I have a life that looks very diverse and dynamic and strange to the average person, right? Normal people like have a job, maybe two. I have like 70 businesses because on some days I feel like being a house stager. On some days I feel like teaching consciousness to people. On some days I feel like auditioning for a TV show. On some days I feel like putting a storytelling event together, which we're doing on June 25th here in Beacon, New York. Message me about it. I'll invite you. So this is how my spirit feels alive and healthy and well inside my body. Why? Because I have listened to my feelings, not judged them as weird or wrong. I should have one job and one job only. Why can't I figure out what my one job is? You know how judgmental that question is? You know how mean that would be to young Katie? Young Katie has a lot of shit she's fucking up for and a lot of diverse things and diverse interests that she wants to engage with. So I listen to her. I feel her. I meet her needs. I show up for the diversity of her interests. So I'm really proud of myself for that because that took a lot of years to be forgiving with myself about and to not judge myself for. Okay, so there I am giving a little presentation today to a bunch of realtors because I stage houses because I love the design aspect of getting to like, if you see this right here, like I made this very pretty. I'm into like making spaces pretty. So realtors bring me in to make their houses that are on the market pretty so that people will buy the houses faster. And I also love the job because it's a very autonomous job where I have a lot of freedom. So I get to go in and like, I show up, I decorate, I leave. The money, they pay me ahead of time. It's like it works on my terms. It's really great. I'm not negotiating with a lot of people. I'm just like, here's how to make it pretty. And I trust my vision. And luckily, I'm kind of good at it. So people have come to trust it. And that's great. My point being, I gave a presentation today to a bunch of realtors. And I came out of that presentation and I just felt disappointed. I think I was expecting this particular group how shall I say this? I was expecting the area I was in to have a little bit better of a real estate market. It turns out the market is a little not what I thought it was. So then when in the meeting, I realized the kinds of commissions I would get on these jobs. And I was like, oh, wah, wah. Those are not the commissions I was hoping for in this area, right? I'm not talking about my immediate area, by the way. I traveled to another place. Anyway, so I left that meeting just like, like really bummed out and disappointed. I was talking to a friend of mine by voice memo, and she was saying like, yeah, but, and she had this positive spin on it. Yeah, but you like met some nice people and they liked you. And you told me there was one lady in there you feel like you could be friends with. And who knows what'll come of it. And I think you did a great job. And she had this positive spin, right? And I love my friend. And I'm so glad she gave me positive spin. But I know now, I know better than to tell myself the lie so many spiritual people tell ourselves, which is, yeah, she's right. I shouldn't feel disappointed. I should feel positive. Do you know how exhausting and spiritually draining it is to tell yourself you should feel positive when you don't? You know how exhausting that is? That is the shit that will leave you with no fucking energy to do your dreams, to live your dreams. So what did I do instead? I went deep into the disappointment. I went, oh, I'm so disappointed. I felt into the center of it, in the middle of my belly. And it's like moving still as I drop into it. And it moves out through the back of my channel is in the back of my neck. So when I drop into an emotion in my low belly, it travels up and releases out the back of my neck. That's just kind of how my system works. Yes, I'm in New York now. Hams Ellison. Who the hell is Hams R. Ellison? Is that James? James R. I get it. It took me a second, but I got there. Good to see you, Hams. That's not your name. Yeah, I'm in upstate New York now. An hour and a half north of the city. Whee! So I stayed with the real sense of disappointment. And I got to tell you, I was with that disappointment for about, I don't know, 2 hours. It was really in there. It really was like, this is a bummer. I kind of talked about some of it to a friend and another friend just to process it a little bit, give it a little bit of voice. I got home I went like ran some errands while feeling it, came home, laid down on the bed, and I like had Squeezle the dog in my lap and was just like, I'm sad and disappointed. And I was hugging her and petting her and just letting that part of me that was really bummed out. It had a high expectation that got dashed, and and then sadness. Now, eventually I had another appointment it was like a 2:00 appointment, and I had to drive to it. And I have to tell you, on the drive to the appointment, I was like feeling around for the disappointment. I was like, okay, let's stay with this feeling. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It was gone. I couldn't find it because I had processed it and it was gone. That's a fucking miracle. I don't know about you, but to be able to process a feeling in real time, not judge it, and process it so thoroughly that it actually completed itself. Then I went to this meeting that I had that was incredibly positive, and we had a really good time. And I stayed with my vulnerability, and I didn't try to put on a mask of like, I'm tough and strong and I have it all together. I was like just sitting in my like kind of disappointed space. I didn't feel the emotion anymore, but like, you know, when you feel a feeling for a while that's like an uncomfortable feeling, and then you're just kind of like blown open by it, and you feel raw and just open. I don't know if you guys know that feeling. I mean, just like, oh, I'm very exposed and I'm in this vulnerable spot. So I was like at this business meeting, just very open and vulnerable, just being with that, not trying to change it, not putting a mask on, not putting my business face on, none of that shit. Now, I didn't go sharing with my business associate everything that was happening for me, but I shared it with me. I stayed with the after effects of it. After that business meeting, we had a great meeting. I was like skipping out of that meeting, laughing and happy. And I've had a lovely afternoon where I'm not plagued by that feeling anymore of disappointment. Why? Because I let it have its voice. And what comes of that is a sense of wholeness and peace and connectedness and which is what we call spirit. And that, my friends, is how getting your needs met, feeling your feelings, asking for your needs to be met with other people, and telling the truth, aka telling the truth, is connected to spirit. So I've talked for a long time. I feel like that took a little longer to get out of my open head centers than might have been possible, but such is the way of things. Does anyone have a question or a comment or anything they'd like to share? Please do not be shy. Please share your thoughts, feelings, insights, awarenesses, questions in the chat now. We have just a few minutes. I promise not to keep you too long over past 6:30. But please throw your questions up. If you need clarification on a specific example about this, or if you just want to share a victory on this or a challenge, please throw it up. I promise all of your questions help the rest of the group so much. Margaret says, can you give me insight into what unmet need or unfelt feeling has resulted in my experiencing a UTI this week? Oh my gosh. Okay, let me sit with it with you for a second, Margaret. Oh boy. Well, I'm tempted to throw that back at you. So when you feel into it, Margaret, if you could feel into the UTI now, I know that's not a fun feeling. I'll give you this hint. What feminine, vulnerable, emotional needs are you regularly ignoring because the person or people around you tend to dismiss them as being too something? Too much, too intense, too needy, too emotional, too feminine. What's that? And I can feel it. That UTI feeling. God damn those UTIs. That feeling way down in the pelvic. It's not quite the pelvic floor, but it's right above it, right in that second chakra where those UTIs like to burrow in. Right in there, there's a female, feminine, vulnerable need that you have been judging in the same way that we were just describing, because the people around you, because of their own traumas and their own stuff, not because they're terrible people, it's like they can't quite make space for it. So there's really so you believe you don't get to make space for it because it's just too much. What is that? Can you write in the chat what that is? Ponder it, sit with it. Let me know. And I'm going to answer this other question while you do that. If you're open to sharing that, of course, but that's what it is. And if you don't know right now, excuse me, the homework would be to sit into the place where the UTI is and ask that part of your body, what are you needing regularly in the realm of feelings and feminine? Oh my gosh, hold on, I'm going to mute. Wow. That was like, I don't want to tell you what that was. It was gross. Okay. Sit with that and ask it what it needs. It's emotional, it's feminine. Yeah, pondering. Feel into it. Here's the practice, Margaret. You can do this right now and write it as you come aware of it. Feel into it. Imagine that the place where the UTI is living has a voice, and that voice is talking to you, adult Margaret. What is it asking you for emotionally? I'll come back to you in a second. We're going to go a few minutes over, you guys. We're going to go at least until 6:40 because these questions are here. Do you have any manifesting hacks that will not leave one exhausted? Well, yeah, that's called thank you, Jacqueline, the sixes. So Desiree, what I would suggest for you is have your human design chart read, because you may be functioning incorrectly for the way the machine, the body, mind, organism of you is meant to function. So for example, if you're a projector, you're meant to wait for the invitation, not initiate. You're meant to wait for the invitation. If you're a generator, you're meant to respond. If you're an emotionally defined generator, you're meant to respond and follow the emotional wave, aka wait through the ups and downs of your feelings until you come to neutrality. If you're a manifester, you're meant to inform and wait. So there's subtlety to this that has to do with how you're meant to correctly function as yourself, which I would direct you back to your human design. I would also say, develop a strong connection to spirit, to source, and then start taking all of your needs and requests to it before you take it anywhere else. So when I need money, I go into the records and go, okay, God, money, what is it? Do I need to clear something? Do I need to just ask you? Do I need to send an email? Do I need to create a class? Do I need to go on what do I need to do? And it's the energetic connection with spirit that brings the money in, not the external steps I take to bring the money in. The external steps I take are just assignments I get from spirit. And I have to take steps 9 times fewer out of 10 than I think. 9 times out of 10, I just need to open the records and ask. So develop your connection to spirit. That'll help a ton. And look at your human design chart with someone who knows what they're doing. Feel free to use me if you like. KatieRubin.com to book your session. Care Bear. I feel that I often get stuck in my feelings for days, years even. And yes, it is spiritually draining to feel positive when you aren't. Absolutely. Here's what I would say to that. Thank you for saying that. I'm going to assume it's Care Bear because that rhymes, but I could be wrong. So correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you for liking my shirt. I like this shirt as well. Look at these. How fun are these sleeves? And the sleeves match the what? Yes, queen. Thank you. Stuck in your feelings for days or years. If anybody else can relate to that, please feel free to write that in the comments in the chat, because that's for real. That, for me, is an indication of needing to amp up the spiritual connection. I had a similar thing where it was like, part of why I used to be so afraid of my feelings, there were many reasons I was afraid of I was trained very well by some very type A parents who were very abusive to be very afraid of my feelings. And our culture trains us to be afraid of our feelings, and our friends train us. Anyway, you get it. The media. Okay. Well, one of the reasons was when I would finally feel a feeling, I would fucking be stuck with it for days and weeks and weeks and days until I developed a real and actual connection with spirit, such that I could feel the feeling in my body, connect to spirit, let the light of spirit hit the feeling, which would then start to process the feeling and transmute it out of my field. Or you could say transmute it into my field, because really what it was doing was processing the feeling. So when one gets really stuck in one's feelings, I find that that's a case of it's almost like you can think of spirit, the light of God or the light of conscious awareness, as the motor oil into the engine of you. You are the engine. Your feelings are like the gears moving like this. And sometimes the gears go like this, because they need motor oil. So you got to get the motor oil of spirit, and then all of a sudden they start to go cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. That's what I have for you on that. That's been true for me. It's been true for many, many clients I've worked with over the years. So let me know how that goes. Come to healing class if you need help activating that. That is what healing class is for. Jacqueline, thank you for reminding me. We're going to talk about the 6s briefly, and then I'll let you all go. Okay, good question, Ben. I'll come back to that in 1 second. All right, so the frequency of the 6. Okay, why did I even mention the 6s? Just briefly. In my reality these days, for whatever reason, spirit talks to me through numbers all the time. The 1s talk to me all day, and the 8s, those tend to be my numbers. But the last 48 hours have been full of 6s, 616, 606. When you see a number with a 0 between it, the 0 is amplifying the energy of the number. So the number 0, if you go 606, that's like a lot of 6, because the 0 amplifies whatever it's between. So we had a 606, I think, or maybe it was a 616. And then the 1 in the middle is my number. So it's, to me, I hear that as spirit saying, okay, 1, we're going to be 6y around the central 1 of you. Yesterday, I had a client / friend say to me, she told me this whole story about 6 years ago, exactly to the day this thing happened with one business, and 6 years ago, exactly to the day before that, a miracle happened with a different business. And now she's in her 3rd business. And so because it was the 6s and it was happening on the exact same day, and she and I had a session on that day, she was like, oh my God, and you're telling me to let go, and spirit is saying, let go. I can trust it because 6 years ago exactly today, and 6 years ago before that. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what the 6 is about. Later that same day, I was teaching a healing class, and it was like my eyes were like this at 6 o'clock, 6:06, and 6:16. I didn't see the clock the rest of the night. That's how it works with me with the numbers. It pulls me. It's like, see this. So then I was like, all right, let's look at what the fucking 6s are. Let's hear it. And by the way, where am I pulling this information? Lightworker Oracle Guidebook. Why? Why am I pulling this from here? Because for me, this resonates. So wherever you get your information about numbers, trust it. Whatever resonates for you. And if it changes, let it change. This fucker pulled me into a building and was like, come over to this part of this big warehouse building and buy this. It was powerful that day. I was like, I must go in here. I must go over there. I have to have that. And I took it home, and it's been like a little Bible for me ever since. It's one of my many Bibles, the Lightworker Oracle Guidebook. Okay. The 6 is, the frequency of 6 is love, money, beauty, and abundance. Well, that's nice. Many people are afraid of the 6 vibration, especially multiple 6s, because of the 666 that the Satan people created, which some teach are a sign of evil. There are no negative numbers, however. The 6 is a sign of material abundance. Oh. The healing of prosperity, love, and romance. That touches my heart so deeply, I don't want to move away from it. Let's read it again. The frequency of the 6 is love, money, beauty, abundance. Many people are afraid of it, because people think it's a sign of evil. There are no negative numbers. The 6 is a sign of material abundance and healing of prosperity, love, and romance. Can I just tell you, I went on a really good date recently, and it's going really well, and I think he's really great. Love and romance. I'm just saying. Now, that's what that is. Ben has an excellent question. Let me just follow up with Margaret here briefly. I'm going to need to re-listen to your insight and sit with it. But initially, the answer that came from my UTA part was, yeah, please take it easy on me. I hear this, and we'll see if I can hear more. Thank you. My pleasure. Let me give you one more nugget on that, Margaret. That's really good work you did there. Please take it easy on me. I'll just give you this little piece. What if you get to choose softness and receptivity even more than you already choose it? With the parts of self who a part of you might judge as being too soft. What if there's even more room? This brings me back to, they bring me to the sort of Mary Magdalene vibration. Like, I think you were doing a meditation for a while there, if I'm correct, that was about where Mary was involved, or is that correct, Margaret? That feels correct. Anyway, the mercy and the compassion of the Mary Magdalene energy, if you could do that practice, bring the frequency of her down into this part, that will A, heal the UTI, but B, if you made a practice of that, bringing that mercy and compassion to all parts of self all the time, literally, like I was saying to the person who asked a second ago, every time you have a need or a feeling, Margaret, if you were to take the mercy and compassion of Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, whatever, into that need before you go to a human being, that will change this so that it never happens again. And then after doing so, that work, that spiritual work will have templated into your nervous system the pattern of how to be merciful with self. Right now, it's not templated in fully. So we're going to deeply template it in by going to her every time you have a need first. Doesn't mean you don't also go to people, but you don't go to people first at this stage with this part of this journey. That feels really good and complete. I hope that helps. Let me know. All right, what is my method, Ben asks, of handling someone who rejects or judges the request of your need? Well, that's not somebody you can really hang out with. I love it so much too, Margaret, and I love you. Thank you. When people reject and or judge the request of your, look, this is complicated, right? It depends on the specifics of the situation. I would like to hear an exact situation to be able to speak very articulately on this point. But in general, you have to look at, are they rejecting or judging it because of how you asked? Did you ask with a subtle layer of manipulation, control, blaming, shaming, attacking? In which case, like I said before, that will put their defenses up and they might go, fuck you, and judge it. But if you really truly didn't, and you did an excellent job of asking in a way that is considerate and or at least in a way that just doesn't make it about them, that really owns it as a need that you have, you're going to have to assess for real with yourself if you want to hang with that person. Now, there are cases where, let's say you have a really high functioning, good relationship with someone, and there's this one area where they judge you and they reject you. For me, at this point in the game, I don't hang with people who judge and reject me. I just don't do it. But if there's someone where it's like everything's good and they hear me and hold me and receive me and don't judge me, except in this one area where their belief system rubs up against my belief system and we just have different beliefs, what I would do is set a boundary around it. I would say something like, "Hey, every time we talk about this, I feel kind of judged. Um, I is there any way you could sort of not judge me about it?" And if they go, "I'm not judging. I'm totally not judging." And you know that they are, then or if they go, "Oh God, I'm sorry. I didn't even realize I was judging. You're right. I won't do that again." That's a great outcome, but you have to ask for the need to get met. Could you not judge me? That's asking for a need to get met. If they may meet the need. If they don't and they react, then you have to say to yourself, okay, this person can't hear me on this issue. This person can't own that they're judging. So I'm going to choose to not talk about that topic with them. And if over time not talking about that topic with them becomes so exhausting because you don't get to be that part of yourself with that person, you might choose to not hang out with them. Excuse my burp. That was a Coke Zero burp. Because hanging out with them means that part of you doesn't get to be self-expressed. So it's not black and white and it's not totally simple. It depends on the situation. But I would say I would bring it back to when you say that to me, I feel judged. Are you judging me? Can you clarify for me if that's a judgment? I feel judged. And if they defend against it and go, no, but you still feel judged, you need to explore, are you feeling judged because of a projection? Oh, my dad used to judge me like this, or my mom used to judge me like this, so I'm feeling judged when I'm not actually being judged. Or are you just aware that they're judging you? In which case I would say protect that part of self. Don't talk about that topic, and or you may have to end the relationship depending on the situation. So I'd like to hear it. I'd like to hear more about the details at another time so I could be a little more specific and articulate. What are you guys thinking of this light coming in the window right now? It's so dramatic. Just like shadow and light, duality, dark, light. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. We're here every Wednesday at 5:30, except for when I announce that I'm not. But most Wednesdays we're here for free on Katie Rubin's Biz Stuff. The drama, indeed. It's my pleasure. Thank you guys. Join us. Katie Rubin's Biz Stuff, Wednesday nights, 5:30. What do I have coming up? Couple quick announcements. I have Star Beings class is starting again. This time it will be on Wednesdays, and we will begin on the following date. I think it's June 8th, Wednesday, June 8th. It's a 7-week class online. It's for people who are light workers or spiritual practitioners of any kind, where you have some kind of spiritual belief, practice, awareness, awakening, and you're ready to dive deeper. It's an intimate class. It's kind of my advanced class. We start on June 8th. I have my OMA class starting soon, OMA Pittsburgh, omapittsburgh.org. It's called Waking the Sleepers. That's a class 5 weeks long to activate your light body and deepen you into your spiritual connection, give you more direct access to spirit for yourself. And my Sunday healing class, I don't have a start date or a topic on that one yet, so I'll wait to announce it until next week. But I love you guys so much. Take good care. Go to katierubin.com when you're ready for your private session and book it there. I love you guys. Have a great week. Take care of you. Be kind to you. Practice being with your stuff this week. You deserve it. Bye.